Okay, so I am going to read a little bit, or I'm going to be prompted anyway. I'm a little intimidated and also inspired to be standing here today. Having just spent some time outside in the auditorium, kind of looking at the work, I kind of like don't want to be a student today. I don't think I would pass the grade, and I don't think I'd win an award again. So I just want to thank David, I want to thank Katie and Jenny and the team and everybody at the RSA for everything they do for you and also what they've done for me over the years. What I'm going to do now over the next 25 minutes is going to share a little bit of my story, my relationship with the RSA, and then also show you some work which we've done at Nike, which embodies some of the things of which David spoke of. David mentioned the RSA changed my life, and literally, it did change my life. And I'm here to pay off a debt. In 1988, I actually won a RSA award, Donald Tomlinson Award, and it came with a bursary of $600. And that money was given to me on the pretense that I would actually write a diary around my experiences and how I spent that $600. I never wrote that diary. So I was a traditional student, I guess, and I took the money and ran, and I ran to America with it. But I'm here tonight to try and make up for that, and I hope that the RSA will accept this keynote in lieu of the diary. So, so it's no exaggeration that the RSA changed my life. Back in 1988, I was a very unlikely candidate for winning an award. I was kicked out of school at 15. I drifted around a number of different educational institutions, only to drop out. I was living in Manchester in the 80s. I'm not sure if how many of you here know about Manchester, but it was definitely in its post-industrial revolution. It wasn't exactly the heart of design, but it had a great music scene, and had a great, I think we put a house party kind of like scene, which I participated in actively. Still here. Anyway, I was an introvert, and I still am. You may find that hard to believe. I was also dyslexic, and still am, and I'm also left-handed, I still am. Although the British educational institutions would have liked to have changed that and made me write with my right hand and draw, but I always fought back with my left hand. Thankfully, none of that was important to the RSA. They didn't care really where I came from, what I'd done. What they did was, though, they invested in me and my time and my ideas, which was really important. So the RSA saw the potential in me, supported it, and fostered it, and rewarded it by giving it an award. And I'm thankful for that. However, I have taken that idea that the possibility can be awakened in anybody, and can made that a part of my tenets of how I look at creative as a profession. Think about it, or when design really connects, we have the potential to bring the best out of people and our products. There is a tremendous opportunity, and it's also an awesome responsibility, and that's what excites me about design. The powerful pulpit we have as agents of change, and the awesome responsibility we have, and the highest standards both personally and professionally with respect to integrity. My career as a creative has been devoted to finding the most creative and meaningful ways to take advantage of this opportunity and take it and fulfill this responsibility. I'm going to say more about that, but before I say that, I'm actually going to show my submission, which I presented in 1988. So I found this, and so it's quite interesting seeing your work outside. That the format has not really changed. That's my submission paper. In 1988, I was at school in Manchester at the Salford College of Technology. It's now a university, and I got to present 3 boards, 8.5 by 11. 8.5 by 11, or 11 by 17 actually. And this is what it looked like. And it was broken down into 3 areas. So 30 years ago, so fashion has changed. 30 years ago, the consumer was always at the center of everything we do. I think we all know that. Human-centered design is going to be spoken about a little later on today, but the consumer is extremely important, and knowing who you're designing for. Obviously, inspiration plays a role in that, and then the outcome of that is your design work. So there was 3 boards, 8.5 and 11 by 17, I'm going to keep saying that, which was submitted to the RSA, and I think it was, I don't know, I think it holds up pretty good for 30 years, but I'm going to move on. lot has changed since then. Now, I did take the money and run, and I ran to America with that $600. So originally I wanted to go to Tokyo, but someone told me I would never get out of the airport even with $600. I'd literally get a flight, and that was about it. So I took the $600, I got on a plane with a bunch of my friends from the UK who I didn't know. I felt safe until I got off the plane, and they all went their separate ways in Manhattan, and I was left alone. Made my way into Manhattan and attempted to check into a hotel. Now, in 1989, when you're 21 years old, coming from the UK to America for the first time, you don't have a credit card in your pocket. And I turned up at a hotel on 51st and 3rd, I think it was, and attempted to check in. That wasn't going to happen. They wouldn't let me check in. I couldn't cover the minibar or the destruction I was guaranteed to do to the room. So they politely asked me to leave. And being 21 and never been to America, I didn't think the idea of sleeping on the street was too good. But this talks about fellowship and the important fellowship at the RSA. Before I left the UK, an individual gave me one name, named a gentleman who was a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts. His name is Jack Rittenberg. Unfortunately, Jack passed away in 1995, but he was Dean of Students at FIT. I was out the street, had a couple of quarters in my pocket, before cell phones, and I phoned Jack. He was at home, he'd had a long day at FIT, and I told him my predicament. I had nowhere to stay, I had nowhere to go, and I didn't know what to do. And he left his house, came across town, came to the hotel, and paid for it with his credit card. And that allowed me to stay in America and start my career in design in the United States. So I'm very ever thankful to Jack. Whilst in New York, I spent about 10 years here, and I worked for a consultancy for the first 6 years of that. And I got to work with a lot of Fortune 500s and 7th Avenue brands. Some of them are on here. My actual employer today was a client at that time. And I worked for J. Crew. And it allowed me to do a lot of things. It allowed me to meet a lot of people. I traveled the world, and I ended up working at J. Crew. I also had the opportunity to meet my wife. And so I was able to move to Chicago and actually teach at the School of the Art Institute for a short period of time. So I think you can say the RSA truly changed my life. When I think about my career, I tend to think about myself as a creative rather than a designer. A creative is being more cross-disciplinary in nature rather than just in a single profession of design. And when I think about it, to be truly successful, you must be more than just a designer. You must understand the big picture. If you want your design to impact the world, you have to connect with people. You have to get them excited about your ideas, deliver true benefits wrapped in a compelling narrative. Creatives are natural storytellers, but are also natural entrepreneurs, getting many startups off the ground. We are also the most vulnerable. We're the first people who have to put an idea on a table, or even put a mark on a piece of paper. And that's not always easy. It's probably the hardest part, is to be vulnerable in front of your peers, or even the people you report to. We have to be the pathfinders, the forecasters, and also the moral compass of our ideas. Because good ideas, design that fulfills the RSA's missions, can't satisfy with just the present. Good design is about making the future happen. And through relentless innovation, we can create new expressions of style. So our role is much larger than just pure design. And if we have empathy and understanding of the human condition, we can do this. Now, I mentioned the award started my life and my career, and I did spend 10 years in Manhattan. And I've spent the past 17 years in Oregon, very different from Manhattan. But the award provided me the opportunity to work for one of the world's greatest brands. I've been at Nike for 17 years, and I've held the position of both footwear design director, advanced innovation director, category creative director, and now vice president of DTC design at Nike. One of the things I've most appreciated about Nike is its freedom as a company to enable me to explore and play a larger role as a creative. As I pursued my career as a creative, I followed a few principles, 4 to be specific. First, I've always wanted to be successful. My definition of being successful is contributing to something larger within the world. and be happy while doing it. You won't be good at it if you're not. And if you have to feel that you are contributing something meaningful and worthwhile, if these ingredients are absent, there's probably some lacking of meaning in the work. I'm going to share a couple of projects now, and David spoke to some of them. This project started about 10 years ago, and it was actually started through the idea of the power of one. That the idea of one simple idea can be contagious and can spread within a company. And that idea was Nike Considered. And Considered actually was not the first name for this. The original idea was actually Feels Right. Feels right emotionally, physically, socially, and environmentally. We couldn't call it Feels Right because legally someone else had taken that name. So we came up with a natural word and very easy to say, Considered. But actually it led to some great findings around what we considered. We considered the manufacturing, the sourcing, the design, and the benefits of the product. And although probably a little ugly in nature, it actually started to create a course of which we're able to follow and a roadmap to lead us to how we create product both in footwear and apparel. This is the Nike Considered boot. It's actually made up of a few components. I think there are only 5 pieces to the shoes. And the interesting thing about it, it looked both backwards and it looked forwards for its solutions. It looked back to native studies of how to actually make and weave and basket weave pieces, but also looked to injection molding and non-adhesive locks, mechanical locks of how things were brought together. So it looked backwards and it looked forwards. It didn't look just one-dimensionally, it looked multi-dimensionally for solutions. It all used vegetable tan dyed leathers, natural jute and rope, and was woven together. Before we had generative design and other tools to help us with that, we actually had to work with Native American designers to help us figure out the actual structure of that, as how it conformed to the foot and how it breathed. It was deliberately designed to be a little bit controversial. It actually caused a lot of trouble within Nike. It wasn't athletic in nature, but we managed to squeeze it underneath the auspices of All Conditions Gear, which was our outdoor line at the time. It did win a gold award, not necessarily for its beautiful design, so I'm not going to stand here and say it's a thing of beauty, but it won an award for the way in which it thought about production, manufacturing, and disassembly. And that's why it won the award, not for its design aesthetic. However, it did continue, and what we wanted to do was prove that we could actually take that philosophy and stretch it to the other end of the equation. I had the opportunity to work with Mark. This is probably about 10 years ago. We did a number of projects together. However, this was the only one which came to market. And it was called the Zidokia, short ZDoc. But really, it used engineered molds, rapid prototyping, 3D modeling to solve some of the same solutions in injection molding. Now, when you think about you have to grade this from a size 6 to a size 22, all those circles look very different when you start to grade it up over a size run. They don't stay where they are, they move around. But it was around design for manufacturing, design for disassembly, and for recycling. And so you can see the shoe on your right, how it came apart into 4, actually there's 5, but it looks like 4 simple components. Mark's name or initials actually came out as well, and they were actually milled out of one single piece of aluminum, which was popped into the injected molded upper. It wasn't welded or stuck or glued. It was a mechanical lock. So we learned a lot from that. From that, it actually inspired to do a lot of other work. The Nike Flyknit was another piece of considered work. I'm not sure how many of you know about this shoe, but obviously it's sustainable. It was generated from one single piece of thread. Again, looking to old as to new. What Nike did was this was reprogram traditional knitting machines to do something they'd never done before. And this is where the integration of software and traditional manufacturing came together. So Nike Flyknit was kind of like the evolution of some of the very early thinking. And a lot of our shoes are currently made this way. Sustainable from a single piece of PET thread, which could come from a plastic bottle. And here on the left, you see the upper flat and splayed out in one piece. We also knit them in 3 dimensions, like a sock. This last summer in Rio, during the World Cup, the Mercurial Vapor was launched, which is a cleated soccer boot. We actually took this technology to the world's greatest football players, and they wore it on the field of play. So about 5 years ago, I moved on from product and I moved into the arena of retail, or direct to consumer to be specific. And I took those examples with me. In DTC is a very different solution, different scale, and I was kind of a little shocked by how a lot of what I'd learned within product was not embraced within the retail environment or architecture. Lightweight, breathable, sustainable, flexible, comfortable, all those words are things of which we use for product. We didn't really use them for architecture. It was still hard, it was still steel, and wood, and very traditional manufacturing techniques. So slowly over the past 5 years, we've been on a journey to deconstruct retail. Rather than fabricating and building out and putting cabinetry into stores, we'd actually be deconstructing spaces, moving into spaces rather than building them out. So this is a store we did, and you'll start to see how a lot of the materials inside that store are reclaimed. The back wall behind the baseboard there is actually a gymnasium floor, which we reappropriated from local gymnasiums. We also did exchange programs with bleachers in schools. Current wooden bleachers are no longer within sanctioned regulation. Children can fall between them. So what we were doing was we took back a lot of wood from schools and replaced them with new systems which allow the child to be safe. From that, we actually moved forward and started creating retail experiences. This one is actually in Manhattan, on Mercer Street. And everything you see there is actually recycled or reclaimed or FSC certified wood. All the black fixturing on the wall there is actually made from post-consumer waste or post-production waste. The fixtures in this slide are actually made from computer motherboards, reconstituted at a molecular level, and then injection molded. So, I do believe in this ethos to bring innovation and inspiration to every athlete in the world. And there's an asterisk on the athlete, because if you have a body, you're an athlete. And I think, for me, Nike has allowed me to be able to expand upon that and move into different areas of design. Now, I'd like to talk about the future a little bit, and you are the future. So, those are my principles. I've shared them with you, and some examples of the work and how you can take into action. So as you start your careers, you must define those principles that create your work. You're starting your careers at a tremendously exciting time. Thanks to new advances in material manufacturing and creation and the internet, you are creating and are participating in the second industrial revolution. I'm envious of you. A lot of the skills of which you have, I do not have. I do not know how to use a 3D modeling tool or a CAD system. So I'm excited for you and excited to see what you do with them. However, design is changing a lot. Generative design, the role of big data is becoming important, but how actually that information forms the solution. So the role of design is changing regarding the aesthetic of what we do. Additive manufacturing, methods of making 3D printing are converging with generative design to make it even more possible to create things we've only ever dreamed of. Material science and molecular design is also becoming increasingly important. And all these things were once separate. They're now becoming the single domain of the designer. And then synthetic biology, some of you spoke about it in some of your presentations outside, the role of biomes. And actually yesterday I was at MIT at the Active Matters Summit, and all of these things were addressed and how they are converging, or the confluence of these, upon a designer. So, you will be the leaders of this revolution. The tools of creativity are being democratized and widely distributed more than ever before. The world is your oyster, and it's your time to make your own luck. One word of advice: a good designer has to remain curious. Curious, always asking questions. So as you explore the world, look for companies like Nike and others that value creativity and are willing to invest in you and your ideas and help you innovate for a better world. And it has to be a better world. Sustainability will play a role in that. Sustainability and innovation together will play a collective role in shaping the future. I've held various roles at Nike, one of which I've never been most of them I've never been qualified for, and if I had applied for them, I would never have been given the job. And I'm lucky for that. But look for those companies who dare to dream with you and invest your time in them. I was once in your shoes, and I've told you that story. I've sat where you sat. I have won the awards of which some of you will win tonight. And I appreciate what you will to do in the future. So I'm excited for you on this journey. Before I go though, I'd like to leave you with a few simple thoughts. Creativity is a mindset, it's not a job title, it's not a salary, it is a mindset and a way of life. Good design always solves problems. Great brands sell ideas, they don't sell items. Innovation fuels separation and distinction, and that everything you do actually communicates. Most important thing in anything you do is the integrity of which you do it. How you present yourself to the world, your colleagues, your peers, and your collaborators. So I can't emphasize that enough. Integrity in everything you do is critical to your own success. So I want to say thank you to you tonight, and also to the RSA, and wish you well as you embark on your career.